Today in our How to Loom Knit series, we'll be working on decreases. We're taking it up a notch with lesson 9.1, working with 5 decreases. We'll be taking 2 stitches down to 1 with the k2tog and the sssk. We'll talk a little bit more about this so you can apply it to any pattern, as well as working these 3 stitches down to 1 with the knit 3 together, or the slip 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 knit, which is sssk, and the center double decrease, or CDD, here on GoodKnit Kisses. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. For more information on decreases on our website, please click down in the link below in our description, and also the video for decreases you can see up here as well. For supplies, just like our increase video, you need a loom and a yarn appropriate to that loom, plus your loom tool and a stitch marker or markers to mark the 2 stitches or 3 stitches that you want to get down to 1. I'm using a flexible rubber band, and here I've marked the middle 3 stitches to take this down as a 3 to 1 decrease. So grab your tools and we'll begin. With decreases, the most important thing is knowing if you need to make your knitting work to the left or work to the right. That's really the big takeaway that I want you to get from this, because if you ever get a pattern and it starts saying something or a different abbreviation you're not familiar with, you can go and look at the picture of what you're working for and make sure that you want it to lean a certain direction or not. And if it's unclear and it just gives a general decrease instruction, then you can decide, yes, you can decide if you want that stitch to lean a certain direction or not. So the main takeaway from this is, I want you to know that whether you're working from the right side of the loom to the left or the left to the right, it doesn't matter. You can make these decreases at any point in your loom, and I can teach you how to do that by knowing which stitch is on the bottom. So the main thing to know is how to set up the stitch to get it across. I will tell you a funny little trick that I was taught by another designer. She liked to say that SSKs are liberal or left leaning, and right leaning decreases or right leaning stitches are conservative. They lean to the right, and so it's easier for me to remember. So k2togs are, she actually used to say k2togs are Republican. They lean to the right, and SSKs lean to the left, which is really funny. And so one way that you can remember how to do that is make sure that that particular stitch is on the bottom. So let's go with this one here. I'm already worked my knitting up to this point, and I want to make these stitches here with this green band, the knit 2 together. We want it to lean to the right. So all I'm going to do is take my right stitch and place it on top of my left. This left one remains the stitch on the bottom. And so when I work this stitch or I knit it, then it's going to face the right way. It's going to directionally move that way when I keep knitting, okay? And then once we work that, as always, we want to move our stitches in, unless your pattern calls to add a yarn over. You want to move all these in. Your yarn over can be either before or after that decrease, but for this purpose, we want to only talk about decreases. Let me work this middle stitch here, and then I'll show you a left leaning decrease to kind of point to the middle. So in this instance, we're going to take the left stitch where my orange rubber band is here, pick it up and move it on top of the stitch here on the right, so that the right stitch of these 2 stitches is on the bottom. And then we're going to knit that stitch. Okay, you can do one at a time or both over at the same time. Okay, and now I have decreased, and then we want to move our stitches inward just like that. Now, it's not always going to be in the center of our knitting. Okay, so just like this sample here and on my loom, I've got this right in the middle. You could have a shawl that goes across the whole thing, and I might have several of these with several decreases, and you might in fact work in a yarn over or some other increase as well. So you may have stitches going in like this and then have little holes. So anytime you have a decrease to the right or left, this is what I want you to use. All right, let's go to 3 stitches down to 1. This decrease sample is a little goofy, I know, no one would ever knit anything like this, but it represents a few things that I want you to really pay attention to. If you notice, the one in the middle looks great. Everything is pointing to the middle. You have this middle column of stitches and it just lines up really beautifully, going all the way down, 3 stitches down to 1, and then you just loop through that final 1. You can just continue to go, go, go. But on the left side over here, you can see that it has these big areas. They're not a yarn over, but you can see a very clear stitch here. If I was drawing them off and making hash marks or something, or ticks, that's what I would call them, a little tick mark or hash mark or something. It kind of looks like a whip stitch in sewing. You can see that very clearly. This one over here, you see the middle column, but it leans over this way. It's actually on the right side of this column, okay? And then the one over here, you can see it looks the opposite. Here's one of the stitches here, and one here, and down here. These are on the left side of this column, and they make these long little hash marks or tick marks, okay? So that's really the main difference between them. So that middle central column isn't really fully seen, okay? So you mainly see this little mark. This one over here is the
slip, slip, slip knit.
I don't actually see it lean to the right or left. If you notice, these look almost symmetrical, except you see these little hash marks that fall on the right side of this column. So that's how I remember that if I wanted these little tick marks to appear, I would make
the sssk or the slip, slip, slip knit.
The one on this side over here, it's the opposite. They are on the left side of this column here, but it's the k3tog, or knit 3 together. And that's the only difference between these two. So let's do those first, and then I want to show you the center double decrease. They're CDDs. You get this really pretty central column. All right, let's do that now. We've got our knitting. I've worked all the way up until the middle 3 stitches, and I'm showing that marked with my band. I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm keeping my 3 stitches down to 1 right in the middle here. So I want my rightmost stitch for
the slip, slip, slip knit
to be in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to pick up this second stitch and place my right stitch and put it on that center peg. Okay, whether you're working right to left, it's the same thing. So we want the rightmost stitch on that middle peg. Okay, then we're going to replace that stitch that was there right back on it. Okay, and now take the left peg and put it in the middle. And now these stitches can be all worked together, and you can move the other stitches inward, okay? Or that would be your opportunity for, say, 2 yarn overs on either side if you're maintaining your stitch count. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go ahead and knit these here. And then we'll move in the stitches. So if I was decreasing stitches, I would then move these in. Okay, so you just work all these stitches in and then move these over and knit them as well. All right, let me go ahead and show you the
knit 3 together. The knit 3 together, or k3tog,
is going to have the left stitch in the very middle. So we're going to pick up that left stitch and pick up the middle stitch or center stitch and move our left over. And you can even slip it onto your loom hook and move it to the middle. And then replace what was that middle or center stitch, put it right there, and then move your right stitch on top. So we're just stacking those up just like we did the other one, and then knit all 3 of these stitches together. And then you want to move your stitches in. And of course, if you have an increase or a yarn over that belongs on either side, you can wrap the yarn over on here, then knit the stitches, and then wrap the next yarn over. All right, let's move on to the center double decrease. My absolute favorite is the CDD, or center double decrease, sometimes called centered double decrease. So let's do that one now. You've worked up to your stitches, and now all you do is leave the one that's in the middle of the 3 that you've marked. So I've got 3 here. Leave that one exactly where it is, and you're just going to pick up the right stitch and put it in the middle and pick up the left stitch and put it in the middle. And you can just continue to do it the same way for all of them. It doesn't actually matter if you put the left on the middle first or the right. Just do it consistently every time. So if it's easier for you, if you're working left to right, to put the left on first, that's fine. Just make sure that you always have the middle stitch on the very bottom. And then of course, go ahead and knit those 3 stitches together. And if it's a purl 3 center decrease, then you can use a purl. And any of these, change it to a purl if it's called that way. Let me show you with the yarn over like I was talking earlier. So if I wanted to go ahead and knit this and maintain my stitch count, I can yarn over first and as an E-wrap, or I can hold the yarn in front and then knit these stitches one at a time or all 3 together, whatever works for you, leaving only 1 stitch on the bottom, yarn over, and knit these next stitches. Okay, make sure and give myself a little bit of tension here, and then finish out my row. And you can also have multiple decreases that are centered throughout your pattern. You can have several that knit 3 stitches down. You will have to do a lot of moving if you don't have any increases next to them. Most of the time on a large project, you will have increases next to them, and so that's why I wanted to show that to you. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and it clears up some information for you about decreases. Please be sure and click down in the comments below and let us know which is your favorite centered decrease. Do you have a favorite? Do you have any other questions on decreases that we can help you with? Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.